What I want to do now is to talk a little bit home in on this inter-carrier orchestration. There's been a lot of work in the industry. By the way, how many are carriers here in the audience? Okay, around about 50%. So there's been a lot of work on what we call orchestrating your own domain. Now the question is how, when I do business, I want to have a global footprint, how do I interact with my partners and provide a service and exchange that information? And I'll explain about the relevant APIs and also some market research that both myself from Amartus and the MEF has done in this area. So we're going to have a quick look again at the LSO reference, homing in on the inter-carrier piece. I'll go a little bit into what is Sonata, why you should be interested in what it does. And I talked about a bit of market research. Is this technology looking for a market, or is there actually a market there that's looking for a solution? And then I'll follow up about how you can get involved more in this. So Pascal's already brought up this slide. I think the key takeaway from that really, for me as well, is that MEF has been mainly concentrating on carrier Ethernet up until now, but seen that there's more to it. So it's about this assured services and not just the carrier Ethernet piece. We're all about automation and APIs, so APIs aren't new. What we're bringing to the table is a common API, common language. So instead of every carrier coming up with his own proprietary API, then everyone having to translate, is if everyone uses the same language, English, for example, then we all know and understand and our systems can talk to each other. It's as simple as that. And there are many, many ways. I don't know, again, hands up who are already MEF members. Okay, good. So we've got a lot of non-MEF members. There are loads of ways to get involved. And MEF is all about the community coming within and actually bringing your problems to the table and solving them as a community, and not a bunch of scientists coming up with the next bit of technology and then trying to work out if there's a market for it. That's very important. So Pascal, I mentioned the MEF 55 architecture. That's around orchestration and APIs. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. They are, when they're released as SDKs, so they're very easy to digest and use. There are other parties in the industry there who can also help adopt those APIs into your network. And they're either experimental, so again, it's all about not just a bunch of scientists coming up with this latest spec. Experimental means we've got an idea, let's get the community using it, feedback before it's released. So when it's released, it's something solid and works, and creates a solution to the problem you have, and not create a problem to a problem you have. That's very important. And roughly every 6 months, we come out with a new cycle. So just delving down a little bit more into these APIs. So in the domain here, this is the own carrier's domain. So we all know that carriers need to sort of disaggregate their networks. Gone is now the vendor turns up with his own hardware, his software, his own management, and you have to spend 12 months working out how to pull all that together. And when you want to spin up a new service, it means more hardware, more software, another management to look after. Gone are the days. So these APIs are really the glue to bring everything and everyone to talk to the same language, whether it's English or US, whatever it is. That's the whole idea. You can come in, bring in a second vendor if you want in a particular domain, whether you want that as a competition or another vendor that complements your initial offering. And if they all speak the same language, you can integrate, automate within days or weeks and not months and years. That's the whole reasoning behind it. And it flows from the BSS, creating the service, all the way down through the service orchestrator, which will then start putting the glue together. Here's the service I want. What bits of kit underneath me need to get involved and connected, and through down to the element managers. And Pascal mentioned that there is this API set between the domain controller and the actual pieces of equipment. We're less involved in that. We believe that if a vendor is coming along with his own equipment, with his own domain controller, and can speak northbound something standard, that's good enough for the meantime. Then the second piece, as I mentioned, if you've got enterprise customers happen to be a global beast, not just in the area of your network. So if I need to provide capacity or connectivity in an area I don't have, then you partner, carriers partner with each other. So how do I now, what's that common language when I need to tell my partner that I have a customer, here he is, this is what he does, this is the connectivity he wants, and this is where his office is. It takes months to set that up, and it's frightening. It's done with Excel sheets, emails, whatever it is. Even if these guys are have their own APIs, they're all speaking, one speaking French, the other one speaking English. You need a translator, very painful. So Sonata is all about how do I set up the service, so how do I get my BSS to talk to your BSS, that common language. And then very importantly, Interlude, it's all about fluidity, digital. Customers want it when? Now. When do I want to make a change? In about 3 seconds. When's the next change going to be? I haven't got a clue. Oh, now I want it. So Interlude is more about the service orchestrator to service orchestrate, making those changes between different domains. Obviously, there's connectivity between Sonata and Interlude. And at the end of the day, we all need to be able to bill for it. And that's where the blockchain comes in. Pascal mentioned some blockchain initiatives are going on. And we can talk about that again in a little bit. So what I want to focus on is Sonata. That's where the main industry. So again, MEF is industry-led, the carrier-led. The first thing I want to solve is how do I initially set up that service? So let's take the scenario. I have a carrier in the UK who has a customer, an enterprise. He has an office in the UK, an office in the US. The UK carrier isn't going to set up an infrastructure now in the US, too costly. That's the best way. Partner. Carriers want to sell bandwidth to their partners and buy bandwidth from their partners. It's all about collaboration. Sometimes they compete, sometimes they collaborate. And it could be the same collaboration and competition. Depends on the circumstances. That's how business is moving forward. So with the UK operator, the UK office details, no problem. What do I need to know? I mentioned where is he located in UK. Okay, that falls into my domain. I'm quite happy through a north-south, through the APIs I mentioned. I can set up that connectivity from the customer's office to a particular endpoint. The second US office is now passed on through a Sonata API to my partner in the US. So he'll receive all the information, where he's located and what service he wants, even what SLA. And there's more in that coming out, and I'll show the roadmap. That arrives at the US operator, and he can digest it and then provide that connectivity from that common point through to, now I've done the same thing myself, common point through to the US office. Now that's simplistic, it's between two partners. In reality, there might be an inter-carrier connectivity there. And one of the POCs in MEF 18 is actually between 4 carriers. How you connect between 2 points, between 4 carriers. So sometimes it can be a little bit more complicated than this. So what is this Sonata? So first of all, in release 1, it's all about service availability. So can I perform an address validation? Sounds very simple. Here's my address. Can you service it or not? One customer I spoke to actually has to do more than 1 million quotes a month, and it's based on this information. Now, if you've got, how many people are you going to need in the back office to do that? So you need to automate it. So even very simple requests like address validation, the US have a certain format of addresses, the UK do. Every country has a different format. So having a common API, you can all talk about the same language. Then it's a matter of, here's the location, can you provide this particular service? Sometimes it's yes, no, or I can't do that, but is this good enough? Again, are you going to have a conversation over the phone, over an email? How long is that going to take? It needs to be automated. The customer's waiting to be connected. Then you want to submit the order. Okay, now, you're a business. Everything needs to be documented. Otherwise, how am I going to bill at the end of the day? If you're doing these emails and Excel sheets, how do you prove, and where's the accountability, the reconciliation at the end of that quarter about, was the service set up? So the APIs are a wonderful way, not just about speaking the same language, but you've got audibility. You've got all that accountability. You've got all, here's the facts. You can go through the information. The next release will add extra. I quoted, maybe I need to amend the quote, add a different quote. There's inventory. I need to pull out additional inventory. Trouble ticketing, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, service providers want to provide a particular SLA for an enterprise customer. So if something's gone wrong, I'm providing a connectivity to my customer, but half of that network is to my partner. I want to know if that network's gone down so I can be reactive to my customer. And it flows both ways, because sometimes I'm selling capacity, sometimes I'm buying capacity. So we need to be in communications with each other, otherwise the whole thing's going to fall down. So adding additional functionality to these APIs. Now again, I need to say, this is all driven by carriers. So the most of the people who are driving these APIs are the carriers themselves, saying this is what we need and defining it. So in release 3, there's additional modifications to the order. People change their minds. So do I want to modify the order whilst it's being processed? Do I want to submit a future order? And so forth. So it's actually taking that real life scenario where two people are doing business and ordering and requesting information and turning it into a set of APIs that actually mirrors real life interaction, but to be automated. So instead of months, it's minutes or days. And then in release 4, adding actually to be able to add an account or billing. Now this is very important because if I have an SLA, I set up a service, I want to put some dollars or pounds or euros against that at the end of the day. So you need to attach it to a contract that's between me and my partner. Additional quoting attributes will be added. And then also at the end of the day, I would like to, at the end of a particular period, issue an invoice automatically. A lot of the customers who I've spoken to, you wouldn't believe how long it takes to get paid, because each have a separate database, and then they go through a process of comparing each other's lists, and it can take weeks, if not months. And a lot of them say, just to speed up the process, they'll give them 10% discount, 15% discount, just to stop the argument and move on because they need the cash. So this is where blockchain comes in. Having a shared ledger, you don't need to start comparing notes. You're both seeing the same screen, so to speak. So at the end of a reconciliation, once a month, the system can automatically issue an invoice, and it's a trusted invoice from both sides, and you get paid. Simple as that. So I've spoken a lot about the capabilities. And again, is this just sort of technology looking for a market, or is it really a market that is looking for a solution like this? So first of all, in terms of Amartus, we've spoken with a lot of carriers. So one of our US carriers said, something like this is a must. Why? It takes us 60 days to set up a service. We want to bring that down to an hour, if we can. So through API and automation, and everyone's speaking the same language, they can do that. Imagine how many partners you'll probably need to set up to provide a truly global business. You can't be doing one-off API to API integrations all the time. Your back-end changes, their back-end changes. You'll need, instead of people just pressing in the manual services, they'll be moving into coding. It's just effort moving from one place to another. So you need standard language that you can talk to the world equally. UK, the EMEA carrier, and this is something that Pascal touched on also. It's all about margin. Once upon a time, the carrier was just involved in providing connectivity. Didn't care really what was connected. It's gone. Netflix is eating everyone's lunch. So we're moving more towards services with the hope that can increase the profitability and the margin. Again, if you start having to increase your workforce to cope with that, you're not going to do anything. So automation is very, very important to be able to make it more of a profitable business and move away from low margin connectivity business, which carriers have found themselves in very recently. An APAC carrier said this east-west automation is also a major issue, more or less the same reasons of the US carrier. Another US carrier said order management is their number one priority. And you probably see that reflected in the way the roadmap is with Sonata. We can't conquer the world in one day, okay? APIs is a big subject. We're touching on many, many points in the network. So let's just start off on some real big pain points. And as time goes on, we'll try and cover as much as possible. Okay, and I think this is a good message also for carriers who want to implement this. You don't have to dive in. It's not an all or nothing. You can start using parts of this where your pain points are and then expand that out as you go along. Again, it's not an all or nothing. Just trying to find it here. There was one vendor that was very interesting we spoke to. Vendors are normally, I don't know if there's any vendors in the room, but vendors are very normal. They like proprietary. Why proprietary? Because then we end up getting married and the divorce becomes very expensive if we have to leave. I've worked for many vendors. Even this tier one vendor said the way forward is open APIs. Even they said it. So now at the end of the day, everyone concentrates on what they're good at. The vendors concentrate on the data plane, what they're valued, what is their product. They can then put that on a piece of open standard white box hardware, because the white box hardware manufacturer, he's good at what he does. And then you have other parties in the equation who are good at APIs and can bring that apart. So everyone concentrates on what they're doing, and we all get together, and it's a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario. And that is the way the industry is going. We learned it from Facebook. So there was some insights about what Amartus have learned for the market. The MEF also, of obviously where all the ideas come from MEF, it's from market research. No one's dreamt this up. So the top purchase driver is about faster service provisioning. This was information pulled out from the MEF membership. And 91% said it was multi-provider networks. How do I orchestrate that? I need to do business. If I've got it down to a T, how I can orchestrate and be a slimline, well-oiled machine in my own network, I need to do that if I'm partnering as well. Otherwise, my customers will go somewhere else. So I mentioned at the beginning, Sonata is just the start of the journey. That's how do I set up that initial service at the beginning. We see there's Cantata, so whether it's a web portal or an enterprise has their own backend, how can they feed in through standard APIs their service requests? If they have to start sending emails and spreadsheets, then we haven't really progressed very well. It's always as good as the weakest link in the chain. Then moving down, I already mentioned about interlude, how I need to do changes on the fly, and then how they're reflected into my partner network is very important. And at the end of the day, those capabilities between what I call north-south, so that's within my own domain, have to reflect the east-west as well, how I reflect it into my partner. So there has to be a mapping of those capabilities. So companies like myself and our partners in the industry are working together to further enhance, and hence you saw the roadmap there ahead. So there was quite a large proportion here not MEF members. I really do encourage you to join, because your pains are probably being shared by anyone else, and this is how we come to solutions to real problems and not solutions to fictitious or dreamt up problems that the industry, let's say, in the past have been very good at doing. So please come along. You've got the ability to just take part, consult and talk to your peers, understand how they're doing it, how they're approaching things. You can actually take some leadership or participate. If you've got a problem, where's the best consultants in the world? Come and get joined with the MEF. Either someone's had that problem, sharing the same problem, or they'll have it before you've told them, after you've told them. So share ideas. You can get a lot of information and feedback, as well as obviously education. You probably hear stuff that you're about to walk into as a problem and you've not heard about before. So you can stay up to date with MEF. There's public communications, whether it's through the MEF website itself, the YouTube, all the usual culprits, whether it's through the MEF forum in LinkedIn and through Twitter. And then there's the quarterly events. And as Pascal mentioned, there's a big one coming up in Los Angeles, where there's more than 50 participants in 19 POCs. And these are all led by carriers. Again, it's not vendors or consultants or interested parties trying to dream up problems for you, like the Millennium Bug. planes are going to fall out of the sky. These are problems that the carriers are saying, I have a problem today, it needs to be solved. Let's all get together and sort it out. Thank you very much.